everyone, I hope you are all well. In this video I want to talk about a modified gear shift that I made for my SRX600. In 2023 I had a serious health incident which resulted in limited senses and reduced force in my feet, both my feet. Actually my left foot a bit more than my right foot. And as a result, I wasn't able to shift gears on my SRX anymore. There was actually more to it as well, but gear shifting was a real problem. I was able to downshift, but I couldn't upshift anymore, and that also resulted in the fact that I couldn't ride my SRX. And it was really something that I wanted to do after I recovered from the incident. So I started looking into a number of solutions for this problem because I really wanted to ride again, and that is what this video actually shows. I will take you through the steps that I took to build a modified gear shift for the SRX that will help me shifting gears again. Alright, let's get to it. So a bit more detail about the problem that I'm facing since the incident. So I've got nerve damage in my feet, and that nerve damage causes that I have limited senses. So I can't feel heat or cold very well, and also movement is far less than it used to be. So I cannot move my feet upwards. I can move it downwards, but upwards is really a problem, and it makes gear shifting on my SRX obviously a bigger problem. So I need support on my feet. That's what you can see on the picture right here. So that helps to put my feet in a 90-degree angle, and that ensures also that I can properly walk in a safe way. So as I said, downwards movement with my foot is kind of alright. Upwards is difficult. So I don't feel anything. I don't feel the gear shift pedal, and it's also like that I can't move my feet to move the gear shift pedal up. So that is obviously not very practical, and a really showstopper if you want to ride the SRX again. So that's why I started looking into solutions for this. Now there are multiple solutions for this problem. So you can have, like an automatic shifter, or you can have shifters that are operated by hand. But these are often very expensive, or you need to change out your bike to another bike that has an automatic gear shift. And that's not really what I wanted to do. I wanted to keep my SRX. So I started to look into heel-toe shift pedals first. They seemed like quite a cost-effective solution to me, and not too complex for me to deal with. So these heel-toe shifter type of pedals are the typical pedals that you find on cruiser bike like Harley Davidson or Indian motorcycles, for example. That's where you find those heel-toe shifters. So the only thing was to find the right pedal for me that I could adapt and install on my SRX. And having such a heel-toe shifter pedal, I should be able then to shift both up and down. So downshifting I would do in a normal way with the front of my foot, and upshifting I would do with the backside of my foot with a heel-toe pedal. So, and that would work, and that's why I started to look into these type of gear shift pedals first. So on the first attempt, what I did is I removed the original gear shift pedal for the SRX, which we all know. Here's the pedal. It's without the linkage, by the way. And I replaced it with a heel-toe shifter pedal that I bought from a Chinese website. And here's how it looks like. So you can see there's a front side, there's a back side. And what I did is I mounted it directly on the shift shaft of the SRX. So I could shift downwards with my feet, and I could shift upwards with the back of my feet here. That was the idea. So the thing with this pedal is it did work. I could shift. However, every time when I had to shift, I had to move my foot forwards because it wasn't located near the foot peg. So I had to look downwards to see if my foot was actually hitting the pedal itself. That wasn't quite comfortable to do, so I dropped this idea. But the good thing about it is I at least know the concept could work. So for the second attempt, I ordered a more Harley Davidson cruiser style type of gear shifter. So that looks like this. hope you can all see it. So here's the gear linkage that goes to the shift shaft, and here's the pivot point actually where it mounts on the frame. So here's where the back of the foot goes, and here's where the front of the foot goes. That was the idea, and that's what I started using. Now the thing with this pedal was it wasn't plug and play really. One of the issues that I found is that the pivot point here is the inner diameter of the pivot point was actually way too large compared to the pivot points. This is actually the original SRX pivot point that bolts into the frame, and it should go into this here. Well, you can actually see it's way too big. So I had to make a modification for this to ensure that this pedal would fit the SRX. So in the solution, I wanted to preserve the SRX foot peg that you see right here. The idea was to mount the shift pedal directly on the pivot point here. Obviously what you see here is the original SRX pivot point, but that's too small, I can't use it because the inner diameter is too big for the pivot point. That was the idea for building it. So in order to make this work, I had to make two parts. Obviously I had to make a bushing, whatever you call it, that would fit into the gear shift pedal, and that would fit on the pivot point or pivot shaft that is mounted on the SRX frame. That was one thing that I had to make. The other thing that I had to make is the original pivot shaft, pivot point. That wasn't the right size, so I had to make a new pivot shaft that would bolt onto the frame and that would fit the bushing. Those were the two parts that I had to make. So I made a design, which you can see right here. So you can see the bushing, so you see the cross section of the bushing itself. And the way it works is that bushing would shift on the pivot bolt. The pivot bolt is in the lower side of the diagram, and the bushing would slide over it. Now, a washer and a circlip would actually seal off the gear shift pedal itself, so it wouldn't come off then. So the gear shift could then freely move onto the bushing, and the washer and the circlip would keep everything in place. So the outer diameter of the bush had to match the inner diameter of the gear shift pedal, which is 18 millimeters. That's what I did on the lathe, which you can see right here. So when all the turning was done, I also drilled a 10 millimeter hole in the bush itself. So 10 millimeter because I was planning on using a 10 millimeter Allen bolt, which would be the basis for the new pivot bolt. So I countersunk the bushing with 5 millimeters, so the head of the pivot bolt would actually recess in the bushing itself. And then in the middle of the head, I would turn a groove right in the middle that could hold a circlip and a washer as well. So that's the essential pieces that I did on the lathe. So when all parts are finished, it looks sort of like this, where you can see in the picture. So here you can see the circlip, the washer, the pivot bolt, as well as the bush. Now the circlip on the pivot bolt, together with the washer, that is really what holds the heel-toe shift together on this pivot shaft. This is how it looks like is when the pivot bolt and the bush is assembled together. Now the bush slides into the heel and toe shifter, and the pivot bolt slides in from the other side, as you can see here. And this is how it looks like when it's all assembled together, and the only thing you need to do is use an Allen key to bolt the entire assembly to the frame. What I noticed is that there were actually two additional issues with the Harley gear shifter. So first of all, the gear linkage didn't fit the gear shift shaft on the SRX. I don't know exactly what it was, but it seemed like poor quality to me. So I couldn't use it. I really didn't feel like hammering it on the shift shaft and perhaps damaging the shift shaft. So yeah, the splines didn't match of the gear linkage with the shift shaft, so I couldn't use it. The other issue that I saw was that the link rod on the SRX had one left-handed thread and one right-handed thread, while the Harley link rod that I had two right-handed threads. So that means I wasn't able to use the linking rod, and I had to make a new link rod as well with two right-handed threads to make it all work. So in the end, I used the original SRX gear linkage. That's what I did, but I made my own gear linking rod as well with two right-handed threads so I could adapt it to the heel toe shifter. Did it work? Well, unfortunately, not really. It turned out that the footback interfered with the shifter too much, so I couldn't shift gears very well. Well, unfortunately, I don't have video footage showing the footback interfering with the Harley heel toe shifter. However, the picture that you see here shows the issue with the first shifter I used. And the first shifter is now mounted on the location of the SRX shifter instead of mounted directly on the shift shaft. Now, I think you can clearly see that the Harley shifter would never work with the original footback in place. The footback is too high, and I'm not able to reach the back of the shifter with the back of my foot. So quite disappointed, of course, and that means, yeah, back to the drawing board. So I could only solve this issue if I somehow could move the foot back to the center of the pivot point on the gear shifter. So I decided to get rid of the left footback mount and mount the shifter directly on the frame. I also had to let go of the new pivot bolt that I made out of a 10mm Allen bolt. I couldn't use it anymore. So in the new design I would keep the bush that I made on the lathe, and in addition I would use a piece of 16mm threaded rod that would act both as a pivot shaft for the shifter and extend into a fixed footback as well. Now one side of the rod, 16mm rod, I would turn down to 10mm on my lathe to fit inside the bush. And there will be an additional 20mm of 8mm thread that would screw into the frame directly. So there's 60mm as for the footstep, there's 10mm that fits inside the bush, and there's 8mm that would go into the frame. You can see how the new footback bolts onto the frame directly and how the bush slides over the footback. Now 16mm nut with a washer tightens against the bush. The bush length is 0.5mm oversized compared to the depth of the shifter. This ensures that the nut can be tightened without locking the gear shifter tight. I then spray painted the rod black with heat resistant paint. And of course this is not the most aesthetical solution, but that's really not the goal for now. So the purpose is really to find out if I can ride my bike and if I can shift gears properly. And always at a later stage, I can find a better solution for this. And this is, for me, this is fine enough now. Now, a few closing comments. With this shifter, I decided to perform a test ride. The bike hasn't run for 2 years and it wouldn't start. Also, the front brakes were locked up. So I had to take the carbs apart, and I cleaned them in the ultrasonic and reassemble the carbs again. The bike would then start. I also refurbished the brake calipers, I replaced the seals and added new brake fluid, and then the brakes worked again. I also replaced the regulator, which has gone bad. I had to pump up the tires after 2 years, and then the bike was ready. Now, starting and riding was a bit scary at first. I haven't been on bikes since 2 years, and my body strength is still not what it's used to be since the incident. And also my foot has a limited function. Nevertheless, I managed to do a short ride in the street where I live. I did a few practice rounds to learn how to use the new shifter. So up and down shifting works. Although it is a bit strange because I can't feel very well and I can't feel the actual gear shift. So I really have to listen to the engine to find out if a gear shift worked. And that is something that I have to get used to. Also, yeah, always used to shift gears with the front side of your foot, and now I also have to use the back side of my foot. So that takes some time to really learn. So in short, I really have to rebuild my confidence riding the bikes again. But this is promising. It was absolutely great to ride my SRX, even though it was a very short trip in the street. Well, with that, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video if you made it this far. And I hope to see you on the next video.